Welcome to Loveworld News. These are the headlines. The estimated size of an oil find near Gatwick Airport has been upgraded to 100 billion barrels. World leaders fail to reach Millennium Education targets, say UNESCO. US Secretary of State John Kerry has warned Iran over its alleged support for Houthi rebels in Yemen. And Liverpool reaches the FA Cup semi-final. A very good morning to you. I'm Yvonne de Graaf and these are our main stories. The estimated size of an oil find near Gatwick Airport has been upgraded to 100 billion barrels. UK oil and gas investment said the Horse Hill 1 well in the Weald Basin was now thought to hold 158 million barrels per square mile. In May 2014, the British Geological Survey estimated the Weald Basin to hold around 4.4 billion barrels of shale oil. Stephen Sanderson, the chief executive of UKOG, described the find as a possible world-class resource with the potential for significant daily oil production. The US-based firm, which studied the reservoir, estimated that recovery of the oil would be limited at between 3% and 15% of the total. It also suggested there was no need to use the controversial extraction process known as fracking to get access to the oil. The UK currently produces 770,000 barrels of oil per day, compared to 11.1 million in the United States and 11.7 million in Saudi Arabia. The announcement helped shares in UKOG rise more than 300% during trading on Thursday. Still on the news, the promise that all children globally would have primary education by 2015, pledged by world leaders in the Millennium Year, has officially not been achieved. UNESCO says there are 58 million children without access to primary school and 100 million who do not complete a primary education. Only a quarter of countries achieve the goal of having adult illiteracy. But UNESCO boss Irina Bokova said there had still been tremendous progress. This marks the final milestone for 6 global pledges signed by 164 countries in April of the year 2000 that were intended to systematically improve education over a 15-year period. The Conservatives' manifesto will have a commitment to build 4 new nuclear missile-armed submarines, Defence Secretary Michael Fallon has said. He accused Labour of using the nuclear deterrent as a bargaining chip with the SNP, which would vote to scrap it. But Labour's Douglas Alexander said the claims were embarrassing. He told Radio 4's Today his party would do no deal with the SNP or another party on Trident. The Conservatives and Labour are both committed to replacing the UK's ageing fleet of Vanguard-class submarines, which carry Trident nuclear missiles, and maintaining the continuous at-sea deterrent, meaning there is always one nuclear-armed vessel on patrol. Teenagers will be guaranteed face-to-face individual careers advice if Labour forms the next government. The party's education manifesto also includes a pledge to protect the entire education budget in real terms. A world-class education is not a luxury but a necessity, said Labour leader Ed Miliband. In December, Education Secretary Nicky Morgan announced £20 million to set up a new careers company to forge links between schools and businesses in England. The move followed concerns that careers advice deteriorated over schools took over responsibility for it from local councils in 2012. And still on the news, better funding and more time with patients are needed to improve services, according to a survey of GPs. The British Medical Association poll of more than 15,500 UK GPs found 9 in 10 believed a heavy workload had a negative impact on the quality of care. Only 1 in 10 felt standard 10-minute consultation slots were adequate. NHS England responded that its 5-year plan for GP services recognised that GPs were under pressure and there was a need for more investment. The survey, which comes as the state of services has become a key election theme, also cast doubt on the drive in England for 7 days a week opening. And finally, on the main news, US Secretary of State John Kerry has warned Iran over its alleged support for Houthi rebels in Yemen. He said the US would support any state in the Middle East that felt threatened by Iran and would not stand by if Iran destabilized the region. The US is backing a Saudi-led coalition seeking to drive back the rebels and restore President Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi, who fled the country last month. Iran has denied accusations it is providing military aid to the Houthis. However, it dispatched 2 Navy vessels to the Gulf of Aden of the southern coast of Yemen on Wednesday.
We're very concerned about what's going on there, and it's just not a fact. There are obviously supplies that have been coming from Iran. There are a number of flights every single week that have been flying in, and we trace those flights, and we know this. We're well aware of the support that Iran has been giving to Yemen. And Iran needs to recognize that the United States is not going to stand by while the region is destabilized or while people engage in overt warfare across lines, international boundaries in other countries.
And that concludes the main news. Let's go straight over to Loveworld Reports. 21-year-old Jaskor Chazdinev faces a possible death sentence after being found guilty on all 30 counts, including conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction at the Boston Marathon in 2013. Our correspondent Gillian Kitchener has more.
A jury has found Dzhokhar Tsarnaev guilty of conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction and 29 other crimes related to the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing. The same jury will now prepare to hear a second round of evidence in the penalty phase. They could sentence him to death or life in prison. Tsarnaev was accused of killing 3 people and injuring 264 by setting off a pair of homemade pressure cooker bombs at the race's finish line. The guilty verdicts follow 16 days of testimony, where in closing arguments, defense attorneys admitted Tsarnaev's responsibility. But they contended that his older brother Tamerlan was a driving force behind the attack. Prosecutors argued Tsarnaev was an equal partner with his brother in plotting the bombings as vengeance for U.S. military campaigns in Muslim countries.
Still on Loveworld Reports, 11 people have been arrested in Spain's northeastern region of Catalonia as part of a year-long operation against Islamist militants. Our correspondent Mana Rabi tells us more.
Spain has arrested 11 people on suspicion of being a part of an Islamist cell. They're suspected of planning an attack in the northeast region of Catalonia. Police say some 360 officers took part in the early morning raid at 17 different properties, all part of a year-long investigation that also led to the arrest of 3 Spaniards in December for trying to enter Syria. But Adama Pereira, a friend of one of those now in custody, says the 11 have nothing to do with Islamic militancy.
We discovered Islam through some people and realized it was really fulfilling, with good values. And thanks to that, we feel like real men today. Jihadism has nothing to do with us.
Spain has arrested more than 30 people this year for suspected militant activity. It's trying to stop its Muslim youth from radicalizing and joining armed groups in Syria or Iraq or attacking targets back home.
And from Spain to Yemen, Houthi forces fought battles street by street with local militia in Aden. As aid workers say, the city faces a humanitarian catastrophe. Mana Rabi has this report.
In the Yemeni port city of Aden, the street battles are intensifying. Amateur video purports to show supporters of the country's embattled president helping a wounded comrade. They're said to be local militiamen fighting for President Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi against Houthi forces allied with Iran. The Houthi control the capital Sana'a, but now have Aden and other parts of Yemen in their sights. The two sides have been fighting street by street, forcing terrified residents to either hide or flee. Yemeni refugees are streaming into neighboring Saudi Arabia, which has led airstrikes against the Houthis on behalf of President Hadi for 2 weeks.
The
The Houthi militia are attacking people and residential areas and infringing on the rights of the people and their property. People are living in very dire conditions.
In central Sana'a, the Saudis are trying to dislodge the rebels from key positions. Witnesses say they hit a Houthi office near a pro-Houthi TV station on Wednesday. Iran, which supports the Houthis, has been calling for an immediate halt to the Saudi campaign. It denies the Saudi charge that Tehran is arming the Houthi rebels. But the pressure inside Yemen is mounting. Tehran says it's sending 2 warships to patrol the Gulf of Aden to protect its shipping interests, while the U.S. is speeding up its arms supplies for the Saudi offensive. Calls for calm are going unheeded, and emergency workers are warning of a humanitarian catastrophe. Aid is finally arriving, but there are no signs that the crisis in Yemen is about to simmer down.
And finally, on Loveworld reports, Mexican activists paint murals on donated walls to raise consciousness about human rights violations and violence in their current country. Sharon Reach has this report.
Amnesty International and artists unveil a mural campaign in Mexico City that highlights human rights violations. The nonprofit group hopes art will help raise awareness of the torture, gender violence, and disappearances taking place in the country. In the last 8 years alone, it's estimated that more than 22,000 people have disappeared. Amnesty International's executive director in Mexico, Perseo Quiroz.
Apenas estamos comenzando esta lucha por la promoción.
We're launching this to promote human rights awareness. This is just one of the activities we will be doing this year and in the future while human rights problems persist in this country.
The murals will appear on donated walls and balconies around the city that will be repainted when the campaign ends. Alan Serna is one of the 10 artists featured in the project.
Creo que Amnistía Internacional se va a hacer cargo de.
I think Amnesty International has to give this protest some momentum. The public also needs to give their support, and I hope people are willing to donate a wall, because then there would be more people like us who are willing to make a speech and offer their art.
The Walls versus Censorship campaign will run through April 30th.
And that report concludes Loveworld Reports. But coming up next on Business News, the cooperative group returns to annual profit. I'll be back with more in just a moment. Welcome back, and now the latest in business. The cooperative group has revealed it made a profit of £124 million in 2014, compared with a loss of £255 million the previous year. It said its foods and funerals business had performed robustly, with same-store sales in food up 0.4%, but its insurance business had lost money. The co-op has begun a 3-year plan to steady the business after deep problems emerged in 2013 with its bank, which it has since largely sold off. In the past year, it has sold its pharmacy chain and farms, raising £216 million. UK house prices rose by 0.4% in March compared with the previous month, but the annual rate of property price growth slowed, the Halifax has said. The lender part of Lloyd's banking group said that property prices were 8.1% higher than a year ago. This was slightly down on the 8.3% annual house price growth recorded by the Halifax in February. It said that demand for property was being maintained by earnings growth and low mortgage rates. And finally, on business news, a central bank was split about when to raise interest rates. Latest minutes released by the Federal Reserve have revealed. Interest rates in the world's largest economy have been kept at close to 0% since late 2008 at the start of the financial crisis. Now officials must determine when the US economy is healthy enough to grow without help from the Fed. Some said mid-2015 would be best, while others suggested later in 2016. Well, that concludes business news. I'll hand over now to Christian for the latest in sports. Christian, good morning to you.
Good morning, Yvonne de Graaff.
Now you've got the hottest sports for us right up next.
Absolutely. Well, we're starting with football. Coming up next, Liverpool beats Blackburn, so stay tuned for that on sports. Coming up next. Well, welcome back, and this is sports. We're starting with the latest in football, the biggest game. The clouds that gathered over Liverpool and manager Brendan Rodgers after successive Premier League losses to Manchester United and Arsenal were lifted by a victory at Blackburn Rovers that takes them to Wembley. As the Reds' hopes of a top 4 finish and a place in the next season's Champions League recede, so the significance of the FA Cup increases as the route to success, and the 1-0 quarter-final replay win at Hillwood Park sets up a last 4 meeting with Aston Villa. Rodgers is looking to bring Liverpool their first trophy since the League Cup win against Cardiff City under Kenny Dalglish in 2012.
Brendan, congratulations. They took you all the way, of course, but you got there in the end.
Yeah, over the 2 games, it was a difficult tie. Gary's done an excellent job here with the team. They're very motivated, very strong and very well organised. So when you come into here tonight, it was going to be difficult, and it proved that. But I thought my players were brilliant. You know, they're real good focus in the game. So the shape, they worked very, very well. And as I said, we created chances and we scored 1, and maybe could have had 1 or 2 more.
And the really sparkling moment of the game led to the goal. It was a lovely goal.
Yeah, he's wonderful at that. Young fella, he sucks people in, defenders, and nice lovely little combination with Jordan, and he gets in and a great strike. He just cuts across the ball, gives such great technique, and he said he makes the goal himself. So it was a great goal to win the game. So we should have had a penalty near the end. I thought it was clear. Joe Allen, who was outstanding tonight, I thought broke into the box, got a nudge in the back, and I thought it was a penalty. So, but overall, defended really, really well. Dejan Lovren coming into the team, not been in the team for a little while. I thought he was outstanding this evening. Glenn Johnson, players that haven't been playing a great deal over the last couple of months, but they come into an important game.
And some more football. Gabon was named on Wednesday as the host of the next African Cup of Nations finals in 2017. The Gabonese beat rival beats from Algeria and Ghana in a vote by the confederations. Now, Ghana is voted by the Confederation of African Football Executive Committee at the meeting in Cairo. Gabon replaces war-torn Libya, which withdrew last year as 2017 host because the civil conflict raging in the country. It will be the second time that Gabon will stage the finals after co-hosting the 2012 edition with neighbours Equatorial Guinea. And to more news, at the game on the night after NBA player Chris Copeland of the Indiana Pacers and his wife were stabbed during this dispute outside a New York City neighbor early on Wednesday, fan and the coach of his former team wished him a speedy recovery. The Pacers forward, 31, was stabbed in the abdomen and elbow, and he's in a stable condition. The team said, and media reports said, his wife, Catherine Salatara, 28, was also stabbed. Police declined to confirm the identities of the victims, but said the woman was slashed in the arm and chest. Another woman, 23, was also slashed in the abdomen, the New York Police Department said.
I mean, it's possible. Obviously, it's a serious situation. You wish Chris, you know, that you hope, obviously, that he can get well and get healthy as quickly as possible. That always supersedes and takes priority over basketball. And so it's possible that they could be torn a little bit emotionally. And, you know, one would understand that. And so you just wish him the best. You know, you send your prayers and thoughts to he and his family, and, you know, you do your best to go do your job. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about adult men. So, you know, I don't think you know, get into defining what time guys go to bed or what time they have to be in their hotel room necessarily. Every guy's different.
I liked him for the Knicks, well, because I'm a Knicks fan, so that's really what I like. But wherever he plays, just wish him well.
Prefer him on New York, but, it's his decision, so let him be.
And to the latest in Formula One, Formula One World Champion Lewis Hamilton attended a promotion event for fashion brand on Wednesday ahead of this week's biggest Chinese Grand Prix. Hamilton won the opening race in Australia almost as he pleased, but a big surprise, Ferrari Sebastian Vettel came back with a surprise win at the second Grand Prix in Malaysia to open up the championship. Mercedes driver Hamilton comes to Shanghai track with 43 points, that is, and Vettel, driving his first season for Ferrari, is second with 40 points. Third is Hamilton's Mercedes teammate Nico Rosberg, a big rival, with 33 points.
Yeah, so and the actual track is very, very tricky. It's very challenging, both physically and particularly with the car. The balance of the car has to be particularly special here, otherwise the tires don't last because it's so cold and all these things. So it's a real challenge.
Elegant fabrics,
I've been very much aware of the award for quite some years, and I think I had the chance to go to the award, I think back in 2007, I think it was somewhere in Russia. Unfortunately, we have the race next week in Bahrain, so I won't be able to be here for the event, but I feel quite fortunate to have been nominated, and for our team to have been nominated, it's quite an honor. So regardless of whether or not we win, I feel privileged to be amongst these great athletes that that have been nominated, and I hope that continues for years to come.
Now the warming up next for the Masters, that is in golf. Phil Mickelson acknowledges that his game has been very terrible in the past 18 months. By a recent improvement and a return to his favorite tournament, I've filled him with hopes heading into the Masters starting on Thursday. Mickelson says he's driving the ball better than in decades, if not his entire career, and his moribund short game showed signs of life the past 2 weeks as he prepared for the first major of the year. The thrill of being back at Augusta National makes Masters champions Bubba Watson feel like a kid again as he prepared to launch his bid this week for a third green jacket at the year's opening major. The American left-handed enjoys a huge comfort factor on the heavily contoured layout, where he will also be aiming to join Jack Nicklaus, Nick Faldo and Tiger Woods as the only players to win the consecutive titles.
I'm excited with where I see my game going. I feel that, again, it's kind of like you got to take baby steps. And the first step for me was getting my aggressive style back, getting my focus back to make birdies, and that mental intensity that's needed to be able to get at pins and play holes properly and make birdies.
You get here and you're in awe of the place. I mean, this is what I consider the best golf course in the world. If there's any golf course I want to play, it's this one.
What happened this week, I definitely feel the most confident in my game so far, coming in this week than I have in years past, where I feel like everything's, working.
This year, I come in maybe expecting to play well on a course I feel very comfortable on. I feel like it suits my game nicely.
I really do want to win this tournament. It's just one thing that I want to go through and just make sure I give it 100%.
Mentally, I feel like I'm in a far better place, on the golf course, and being able to handle adversity whenever it might come my way out there.
And lastly, to our top story, you've never seen this before. Maybe you've heard of it. In football, Sergio Aguero and Radamel Falcao drew 2-2 in head-to-head football challenge ahead of the Manchester derby on Sunday. Manchester City striker Aguero and Manchester United Radamel Falcao appeared in the Puma video at the secret location in Manchester. The South American played on a square pitch with 4 goals. 100 fans watched on as one goal opened and another one closed in a new style of football which showed off the players' skills. Both players are expected to be in the matchday squad for Sunday's match at Old Trafford. We'll be waiting for that biggest game on Sunday. That's this Sunday, and that's it on sports. Now back to Yvonne de Graaf.
Thank you, Christian, for sports news. Can't wait for Sunday to watch that game.
Absolutely, he'll be amazing.
Well, that concludes this segment of the news bulletin. Before I go, a quick recap of the morning's headlines. The estimated size of an oil find near Gatwick Airport has been upgraded to 100 billion barrels. World leaders failed to reach Millennium Education targets, say UNESCO. And US Secretary of State John Kerry has warned Iran over its alleged support in Yemen. And finally, Liverpool reaches the FA Cup semi-final.